Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesars Sportsbook. I'm your host, Katie Mox, and coming up on today's show, the Alabama Crimson Tide are the favorite to win the college football national championship with nearly half of the handle on Alabama. Do you put your money on Bama or find a better pick elsewhere? The NFC East hasn't had back-to-back division winners in almost 20 years, and according to the odds, that trend will not continue. We'll take a look at some of the over and unders and where you should put your money on the NFC East. And keeping with the NFC East, let's do a team snapshot on the Giants and give you some good value picks for the G-Men this year. But first, let's bring in our Wednesday guy, Kenny Bets Big, who apparently used to work at a mall. Hey, Kenny.
Hey, Katie, what's going on? Yeah, we talking a little bit about the old GNC days, right?
Yes. I used to work at a mall too. I worked at the Abercrombie and Fitch. I went through. I worked at like the kids store and then Hollister, and then I worked at the adult store. It was a wild ride working at that store. But I agree with you. We were talking a little bit in the pre-show about malls and the nostalgia for our generation about going to the mall and the smell of Cinnabon or Auntie Anne's pretzels and whatever was happening in the food court. But where did you work?
I worked at GNC for like 6 years. I was there. So
Supplements.
Yeah. That was back in my workout days when I cared more about the gym than anything else.
Now you care about making money. Kenny Bets Big. From Kenny takes a lot of supplements to Kenny Bets Big.
Yes, Kenny was big to Kenny Bets Big.
All right, stay right there, Kenny. Let's get into the Mox Thought of the day. There is not a lot of action going on this Wednesday with the MLB All-Star break, so let's go ahead and look at college football. According to Caesars Sportsbook, since May, Alabama, surprise, leads betting with 48.7% of the handle or dollars spent. The other 129 teams combined for the remaining 51.3%. So should you bet on Bama at plus 180, or is there a better place to put your money? No, I don't think there's a better place to put your money right now, and I hate going with Alabama. I got to be honest, I'm not a huge college football girl, but I did go to an Alabama game last year, and it was probably the greatest football game I've ever been to in my life. The amount of pomp and circumstance and fun songs and all kinds of the production of the games there are absolutely incredible. And let's say they've won 18 national titles. Well, so they say. They won 5 with Nick Saban alone. They won in 2011, 2012, 15, 17, and 20. Georgia is interesting here to go back to back. They went 14-1 last season. They were 8-0 in their conference, but they lost a lot of key players. In fact, they lost the most out of any college football team, especially on that defense, which is what made them so scary and so good last year. Bama, of course, also lost a lot of players, but they lose a lot of players every single year, and they still get to the national championship pretty much every single year. It's so hard to win back to back, and it seems even when I look at Bama, they take a couple years off and then come back strong. I think it's a good year for them at plus 180. All right, bringing Kenny back in here for Capper's Corner. Kenny, you heard what I had to say. I'm going with the chalk here, the plus 180 on the Bama Crimson Tide. What do you think?
I'm right there with you. I mean, how do you not take Alabama here? When you look at the futures, Alabama has only missed the college football playoff one time since they started doing this in 2014. So you're taking a plus 200 on Bama right now, and you're pretty much saying they're going to be there at the end, right? When you look at what the odds were for them last year to win it, they were sitting at plus 115. So you can almost assume that they're going to be in the college football playoffs, and the odds will drop by that time, right? So this is almost the best value you're going to get on Alabama. We saw what happened to them last year. Nick Saban's coming back. He's got that chip on his shoulder. They bring back the Heisman Trophy winner. They lost a lot of talent, but like you said, Alabama loses a lot of talent every single year, and they just fill those holes, and it's like nothing happened at all. So yeah, I would put my money on Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I feel like, one, they're going to get to the championship game, like you just said. And with a coach like Nick Saban, it's just like if Bill Belichick is in a Super Bowl, you're going to probably put your money on Bill Belichick to win the Super Bowl. They've just been there so many times. He's the best coach in college football. They have the number 2 recruiting class, which is interesting to me because I would think that they would be number 1. Again, it will be interesting to see how this kind of shakes out in the next few years now that teams are allowed, or the players, are allowed to get money, and how that's going to change recruiting and programs. But for right now, I just don't see anything stopping the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, nothing.
All right, let's talk about the NFC East, or as some like to call it, the NFC Least. So
Ooh.
we're switching gears here to the NFL. Let's look at the odds to win the division. The Cowboys are the favorite, but are you going to go with the favorite, or is there a better value pick? According to Caesars, the Giants are the second in tickets and handle to win the division ahead of the Cowboys. What say you, Kenny Bets Big?
I'm definitely not taking the Cowboys. Yeah, yeah. I mean, history tends to repeat itself. You talked about it earlier. There hasn't been a back-to-back winner for 20 years. That's telling. Like you know what I mean? Like that's not just a fluke. 20
Yeah.
seasons there hasn't been a back-to-back winner. That's a staggering number. So yeah, if I was going to put my money on someone to win it, I would go with the Eagles. They add a lot of talent to the defense. They draft Jordan Davis, who is just a freak athlete. They
Yeah.
bring in Hassan Reddick to help bolster up that front end as well. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. So now you have two strong weapons for Jalen Hurts. He's in his third year. I'm a big Jalen Hurts fan. We saw what happened to him in college. I don't know about
Yeah.
you, Katie, but me as a 21-year-old kid, if I'm, leading the Crimson Tide, he had never lost a game, and then
Yeah.
just like that, he gets benched for Tua. You have to be a mentally strong person to handle
Yeah.
that and just keep going, which he did very well. He won the Heisman Trophy. So, yeah, I like the Eagles to win the division, especially at plus 210.
I like the Eagles, and it's so funny because as a gambler, I won a lot of money on the Eagles. Actually, I won the biggest bet of my life on the Eagles last year on Devonta Smith. I had a double result where he would get a touchdown, the first touchdown, and then if he ended up getting a second touchdown, they would double the money. I won like $2,400 just on one bet. It was super exciting. So I do love the Eagles, but when I was looking at the value here, I kind of like the Commanders at plus 500. They've got a solid roster, and their defense should be more like we saw in 2020. Chase Young is going to be back in the lineup. Wentz is an upgrade at quarterback. Fitzpatrick went out in the very first week. Then we had Heineke, who did okay, but I still think that Wentz is better. Of course, it's easy to remember that last game with the Colts against the Jaguars when he completely blew it and they kept them out of the playoffs, but he still had a decent season number-wise. He had 27 touchdowns. He threw for 3,563 yards. Plus, he's got Terry McLaurin, who is really good and probably better than anyone that the Colts had. And they're well coached. I like Ron Rivera. I think that they're going to be more of a surprise this year, so I like them at plus 500.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When I was, going through this to see who I was going to pick, it was between the Eagles and the Commanders. Carson Wentz just had, like you said, I had a bad taste in my mouth from how last year ended with it.
I had to.
Yeah, you have to, right? But it almost sounds, and we've seen it play out many times, it just feels like a Disney movie. He's played for the Eagles, was on his way to an MVP season, gets hurt, they win the Super Bowl. We all know how that ended. Now he comes back in the division on the Commanders, and it would just feel fitting, right? Like he leads them to a division win into the playoffs. That defense is legit. They're definitely better than they played last year on the field, right? You got Chase Young, Montez Sweat. So, I mean, the front seven on the Commanders is legit. So, yeah, I don't hate that. And at plus 500, I feel like that's really high.
Yeah, and you know what? The Commanders have had so much bad press and bad things. They need the Disney ending. They need some Disney magic to help them go with it. So I'm glad that you like that, and I don't hate the Eagles as well. Okay, let's talk about everyone's favorite team, America's team, allegedly, the Cowboys. Their over and under is listed at 10.5 wins. Overs at plus 125, under at minus 145. Again, these odds are from Caesars Sportsbook. You going over on this one?
No. Yeah, give me the under. 10.5 is a lot of wins.
Yes.
The Cowboys, a lot of people feel like, oh, the Cowboys, they have Dak. They're just going to run it back like they did last year. But not so fast. They lose Lyle Collins, who we've seen in the past. When he goes down, right, the Cowboys, just almost like their attitude on the field is different. Like he was like a big leader, very aggressive player. So you lose a very, very talented offensive lineman.
Yep.
They lose Amari Cooper, who we've seen Dak Prescott's favorite target.
Yep.
Michael Gallup coming back from the ACL surgery. What are they going to get from him? We don't know. We saw CeeDee Lamb. He looked great last year, but again, that was as the number 2 option. Like look what happened to Juju Smith-Schuster when the Steelers lost Antonio Brown, right? Everyone thought Juju's just going to fill that spot, and he has kind of regressed tremendously since he became the number 1 option. So yeah, there's just a lot of questions around the Cowboys, and 10.5 wins is pretty high. And I just feel like that division, they just always beat up on themselves. So I like the under there.
I agree with you. I like the under on this one too. I think we would both agree this is probably more of a stay away at minus 145. It's not necessarily a bet that we're taking, but if you had to hold a gun to our head, then of course we're going to do the under on this one. And for all the reasons that you just said, they were 12-5 last season. And are they going to run that back? Probably not. I feel like it's Jerry Jones' world. And in his world, there's high expectations in the offseason, and then they disappoint, and then he just gets rid of all of his good players to try to start over, and it never really works out. Now, they do have one of the easier schedules outside of the division. They see the Texans, the Bears, the Lions. They were undefeated in their division last year, but for all the reasons we just talked about, that division has actually gotten a little bit better. I still think it's the worst division in football, but the Eagles have gotten better. The Commanders have gotten better. So I don't think that they're going to be undefeated this year within their division. And like you said, they traded away Amari Cooper, which I think is going to end up biting them a little bit in the butt there. We don't know if CeeDee Lamb can be that guy. Like you said, Juju Smith-Schuster wasn't necessarily that guy. Juju Schuster, excuse me. And their O-line can't necessarily stay healthy. So it's one of the most fun things to do in the world is fade the Cowboys. So let's just continue doing that this year.
Worked out last year for your Niners, right?
Yes, it did. It absolutely did.
Yeah,
okay,
and it's almost like Jerry Jones, can't get out of his own way for that franchise because what's really holding them back is how much money they gave Ezekiel Elliott. If they hadn't given him that contract, Tony Pollard looks better than Elliott does on the field. They would have been able to keep Amari Cooper, probably add Randy Gregory. He leaves to go to the Broncos, their best edge rusher on defense. I think that Ezekiel Elliott contract is really going to bite them in the backside and hurt them going forward.
Well, and that's the thing is he always spends so much money on these flashy, offensive players, and he never really invests in the defense. And then it ends up they have the number one offense every single year, but they can't get out of the playoffs. They get to the first round and then they get out.
It's pretty surprising because if you look at the Patriots, obviously they had Tom Brady, but you would think more teams would kind of follow that blueprint that they laid out where you don't need to pay these star receivers and running backs crazy money. Like it's more about the O-line, the defense, the quarterback, but for whatever reason, teams just keep doling out the big bucks to the receivers and the running backs.
Yeah, and the running backs don't even last that long. Okay, you think the Eagles are going to win the division. Their win total is listed at 9 over at minus 145, under at plus 120. I'm going to guess that you like the over on this one if they're going to win the division.
Yeah, I do. But again, that minus 145 price tag, I don't love it. It's not something I would personally bet myself. But if I had to choose, like gun to my head, are they going to win more than 9 games? I would say yes. They have the second easiest projected strength of schedule. I talked about Jalen Hurts, another year in the league to get acclimated to the, pace of play and all of that, learning the playbook. They had a new coach last year that they still won 9 games. They went 9-7. Yep. And I think they're a better team this year. We talked about how the Cowboys will probably regress slightly. So you pick up maybe a win there, you split with them. I think 10 wins is definitely doable for the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, I understand everything that you're saying. The only reason why I like the under on this one, slightly better value, because I could see them getting 9 wins. They have gotten 9 wins in 3 out of the last 4 years since winning the Super Bowl. They have the second easiest schedule, according to Action Network. But Jalen Hurts, to me, I just don't know if he can be that guy. Yes, he's got, a dog inside of him. He's got that heart, like you alluded to, from being on, benched for Tua. But he makes a lot of mistakes. I don't know that he's going to get better this year. I see them right at 9 wins. So if I'm going to do it, then I'm just going to take the plus 120.
You know what was interesting, though? When you look at Jalen Hurts, like the MVP odds, he's pretty high up. Like, he's not really that far down on the list. I think he was like plus 3,000 when we were talking about it last week. I just feel like that's kind of telling you that maybe he does take a big step forward this year. But yeah, this is a no bet for me personally.
Yeah, all right, let's talk about the Commanders. So we already know I like them over their win total at 7.5. This is at minus 125. The under is at plus 105. Of course, I think they're going to win the division, and I already talked about why I think they're going to do well. So I'm taking the over here. What do you like?
I'm with you on the over. Carson Wentz, big step up from, it's crazy even saying that, but definitely a step up from the quarterback play that they got last year. Ron Rivera is an excellent football coach. That team rallies around him. We saw what happened that first year he took them over, right? They actually won the division. But yeah, I like the over there. It's at minus 125, I believe. And so not juiced too high. It's great value. And 7.5 wins. They're projected based on their strength of schedule to have about 7.88 wins. So I like the over.
All right, let's go over. Okay, you're in Jersey, I'm in New York. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about the Giants here. A sad 7 wins is what they are projected right now. The over plus 105, the under minus 125. Kenny, what do you think?
I'm going to go under. And there's a couple question marks here. They get rid of Joe Judge. He seemed inept at, running the team. They bring in Brian Dable. So you have a huge upgrade at the coaching position.
Huge.
We would assume.
Yes.
But I just don't trust them. Saquon can't really stay on the field.
Nope.
We saw, again, drafting a running back so high has kind of shot the Giants in the foot going forward.
Yeah.
Danny Dimes, not a big believer in him. For some reason, he can't win at home. I don't know why. But, I don't like the Giants at all this year.
I don't either. They went 4-13 last year. I do think that they're going to do a little bit better than that. Like you said, new coach, a lot of high expectations. They had a decent draft. Saquon cannot stay healthy, just like you said. And I don't believe in Danny Dimes either. I mean, this is the year where he absolutely has to put up or shut up, and I think it's going to be his last year. I just can't see them. I think they're a year away from being a year away. You know what I mean? I think they got a couple years before they're a contender.
I totally agree with you. I think Brian Dable is going to need a little bit of time to kind of clean things up, fix a lot of the errors and, mishaps that Joe Judge was, kind of bringing in the environment. I think in 2 years, maybe, next year, the Giants will be a sexy pick to win the division. But this year is not their year.
Okay, sticking with the Giants here, let's do a team snapshot. So despite their low expectations in the division, according to Caesars Sportsbook, bettors are spending some serious cash on the Giants. A big draw this season is their new coach, Brian Dable, who is third in handle for Coach of the Year at plus 2,000 odds to win the award. That is tied with your favorite, Bill Belichick. So who is the best value here, Kenny, for Coach of the Year?
I like Kevin O'Connell for the Minnesota
Vikings, yeah.
When the Coach of the Year is a little bit of it's like a tricky award, right? It's more about narrative and kind of like what has the coach kind of brought to the table.
Yep.
The voters recently have favored first-year head coaches. They've won 3 out of the last 5 Coach of the Year awards.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, teams that typically have a star player go down during the season and are able to overcome that favors the coach. Like we saw last year at Mike Vrabel, they lose Derrick Henry, and everyone kind of wrote them off, and then they end up going on to win the first seed in the AFC.
Right.
So when I'm looking at this, I'm looking for a team that doesn't typically have a big superstar. Like, Staley is the favorite. I don't like that pick because even if the Chargers go on to win the division like you and I think they will, people are just going to write it off that, he has Herbert and they brought in all this talent and, they're not going to give him the credit that he deserves for it. So I think O'Connell's in a great position, right? The Packers have taken a step back. They lose Devontae Adams. They lose some pieces on defense. One of those big pieces actually went to the Minnesota Vikings. The Lions, they're the Lions, so they're not really a threat. So I think
I love what is the coach's name for I'm blanking on it right now.
Dan Campbell.
I love Dan Campbell. He's a guy that you want to play for when he was crying and he's talking about biting people's kneecaps off. I mean, he's good TV.
Yeah, he definitely rallies the troops, and the Lions look better than they had in years past under him. But I still think they're not a year away from being a year away. They're more like 5 years away from being a year away. But
they got to get rid of the quarterback situation.
Yeah, so I think the narrative kind of fits for the Vikings here. Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback. He was top 10 last year, but Kirk Cousins doesn't have that stigma of being a elite talent quarterback, right? We've seen, look at the Packers, Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is 39-9 since taking over as head coach of the Green Bay Packers. That's the most wins by any head coach in the first 3 seasons. And he gets a few votes, but he hasn't won the award. And it's because everyone says, he has Aaron Rodgers. But if you look, Aaron Rodgers, 48 games before Matt LaFleur came there, he was 24-23-1. So, that just, again, shows you that having that star player kind of takes away from the coaches, what they're doing. So, I think the Vikings are a good spot here. Kirk Cousins, not too highly rated. They have a lot of talent, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. And I think the Vikings are in a great spot to win that division. I really like that.
I like that pick. I actually like Sean McDermott here with the Bills. Now, I, of course, as you know, Kenny, have been high on the Bills to win everything. And those are interesting facts that you just brought up, specifically when you talk about the star player. Now, of course, there's Josh Allen and there's a star player. But only twice since 2000 has the winners team had fewer than 11 wins. And if we look at the win totals of this season, of course, the Bills are right there at the top at 11 and a half. I think they can get just at 11 wins. And look, this is the sixth season for him as being the head coach. He's been in the running for a few years. He's had 3 consecutive winning seasons, back-to-back AFC championship games. They were robbed last year by a coin toss. I think they can go all the way this year. And so I feel like the team is hot. Everybody's looking at the team. If he can pull off another winning series and get that 11 wins, I think it's a good shot at plus 1,800.
No, yeah, definitely. And, they lose Brian Dable, so maybe a little bit more credit will be given to
True.
McDermott this year, right? I just feel like for him to win it, the Bills will definitely need to be number 1 seed in the AFC, right?
Yes.
Like, I think we can
Which
agree
I
on
think
that.
they will be, and you don't.
Yeah,
You
I
think
mean,
the
they have the
Patriots.
talent, they have Josh Allen, so it's definitely doable. I don't hate it. I like it more than Brian Dable, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, again, a year away from a year away. Okay, so let's talk about rushing yards. We already touched on Saquon a little bit. However, he has 50-1 odds right now for the most rushing yards, also ranked 3rd in tickets and handle. So would you take Saquon as a value pick? I kind of feel like I know what you're going to say here at plus 5,000, or are you going to put your money elsewhere?
I'm going to put my money elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think Saquon, if he stays healthy, definitely has the talent. He has the ability to lead the NFL in rushing. We saw what he did his rookie year. But there's just so many question marks. Can he stay healthy? That's the biggest thing. If he goes down, your bet's up in flames.
Yep.
I like Derrick Henry. I know it's
Yeah.
chalk. I typically don't like laying the chalk favorite, but he's still over a plus 500 value on him. So it's not like you're laying extra juice. And typically we see, the winner of this award is usually kind of one of the favorites anyway.
Of course.
Yeah, I think it's Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, maybe Chubb or Dalvin Cook. Like those are my 4 guys that I think have a very strong chance to lead the NFL in rushing.
Yeah.
If you're looking at someone to, just maybe take a flyer on as crazy offense,
Yes, long
what about
shot.
Christian McCaffrey at plus 4,000?
Can he stay healthy though? I mean, he's kind of similar to Saquon Barkley. It's like you know what you potentially could get with him. You just don't know if you're going to get it.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, he was coming off the one season where he had over 400 touches. The last 2 years, he hasn't been able to stay on the field. So maybe it was a little break for him. But if I was going to lay my money on someone, it would be King Henry. I know he's coming off the broken foot, but I see the videos of him working out. There's a lot of doubters, calling him out. Is he going to regress, hit that wall? So I think he's coming into this year with a little chip on his shoulder, and we'll see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, of all the running backs, he's the one person I definitely would not want to see on the field. When he stiff arms you, it's over for you. And I agree with you. A favorite is going to win this. I like the chalkiest one. I already said that Jonathan Taylor is my favorite dark horse for MVP of the league if it doesn't go to a quarterback. He's at plus 500 for this. He led the league last year in rushing yards at 1,811 on 5.5 yards per carry. They upgraded the quarterback. I still think he's going to have a phenomenal year this year. And he's also the youngest one in the race. He's only 23 years old, which means he's got the freshest legs. So I like him to win this. But similar to you, I was looking at dark horses here, right? So who could we possibly sprinkle our money on? And I think an interesting one is Najee Harris at plus 1,500 with the Steelers. Now, he didn't have a great year last year, but he was with who? Big Ben.
Yeah.
And I feel like nobody expected Big Ben to make any spectacular throws. So they were just loading up on Najee Harris the whole time. He didn't have any any room to run here. I think that if it's going to be Trubisky or if it's going to be Kenny Pickett, it should open the field up a little more and give him more, allowing Harris to run further with some longer opportunities. So I think as a dark horse, we could see him do a little bit better.
Yeah, and I don't hate that at all. Usually when you lose a Hall of Fame quarterback to retirement, you think there's going to be a drop-off. But
Yeah.
Big Ben over the last few years
Oh,
hasn't
God.
feel like the guy can't throw the ball more than 30, 40 yards. So, yeah, Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, in my opinion, is an upgrade to where Big Ben was the past 2-3 years. So, yeah, I think he'll definitely have lighter boxes to run against. They're not going to be able to stack the line against him. And he looked great last year. So, yeah, I love Najee Harris.
All right, let's go. Well, who do you think is going to be the starting quarterback? Just out of curiosity, you think it's going to be Pickett or you think it's going to be Trubisky? Hard to say, right?
I feel like just if I was the coach, I would go Trubisky, just like
Yep.
Kenny Pickett, at least not throw him into the fire to start the season. At
Yeah.
least let him get a few games in. Sit on the sidelines, watch, learn the playbooks, learn the pace of play to the NFL. I would go Trubisky, and Trubisky gets a lot of he gets a lot of hate, but
Yeah.
he's not that bad. He's really not that bad.
Yeah, he's not. No, he's not that bad. I mean, if you look at it, it's like the Bears. It's just hard to grade anyone, right? If they're on the Bears with the offense that they've had the last few years. And I agree with you. I'm not a big fan, unless you absolutely have to, of throwing the rookie right in, because they could get injured. They'll make a lot of mistakes. And I would rather build someone's confidence up a little bit, have them practice, get the reps in, and then use them when you need them. But it will be interesting to see how the Steelers do this year.
My favorite Mitchell Trubisky stat is, it's like the only stat that goes in the guy's favor, is he's like one of the only quarterbacks I think that has like taken enough throws or snaps that hasn't thrown a pick six. That's like the only thing that goes in the guy's favor.
Well, that's something.
Yeah.
It can't be said about my Jimmy Garoppolo. That is for damn sure. All right, Kenny, thank you so much for joining the show. We'll see you again next Wednesday. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook, and we'll be back on Friday.